Good morning to everybody.
Good morning, Commissioner, members. We are ready to proceed, Mr. Commissioner. My next witness is General Holomisa, and he is ready to take the prescribed oath.
Your full names are Bantu Bonke, second one?
Harrington.
Harrington Holomisa. You don't have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, General. Just for the record, you came voluntary to this commission? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you have prepared a written submission to the commission as well as an addendum thereto?
Yes, sir.
And do you confirm the content thereof to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Now, before we start with your presentation, General, just for the record, please put on record who you are and what do you do?
Firstly, my name is Bantu Bonke Harrington Holomisa. I'm the leader of the United Democratic Movement and also a member of Parliament of the UDM since 1999.
Before you came to this commission today, you were involved in litigation against the Deputy Minister of Finance in his capacity as the chairperson of the PIC board, as well as the board members and Dr. Dan Machila, the former CEO of the PIC. Is that correct?
It's correct.
That application was launched in 2018.
It's correct.
And the main purpose of the application was to apply and get an order from the High Court for the removal of Dr. Machila.
That was for him to be suspended while the investigation would take place.
And is it correct the matter is still unresolved?
The matter obviously was never resolved, but it has already been taken over by events because Dan Machila has since left the commission, the PIC.
I believe that you have been approached by various sources with information regarding alleged irregularities at the PIC.
Yes, that's true.
Now, if you can just start with your main submission, paragraph 1 thereof.
Thank you very much.
Or let me say, sorry, what you've done this morning, you have prepared a memorandum and a summary of your submissions.
That's true.
And please deal with that in your submission first of all.
Chairperson and your fellow commissioners, legal counsel, I want to start out by thanking the Commission for allowing me the opportunity to present information that could assist Commission in achieving its objectives. Many people, including myself, were concerned when reports started surfacing about the possible depletion of the government employees' pension fund, which could negatively affect hundreds of thousands of retired and current government employees, which include military and police personnel, correctional services employees, teachers, justice personnel, medical practitioners and nurses, as well as all other government officials. Our interest in the matter was sparked when we received an anonymous tip-off that something untoward was happening with the management of the PIC and by implication, GEPF. This was in January 2016, and we wrote to the public protector to ask for investigation into a number of alleged questionable transactions.
Can I interrupt you there, please? Did you receive any feedback from the public protector on these reports you made to her?
I think it was an acknowledgement, but we never got any finding from her.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Subsequently, media reports brought to the fore many allegations of dodgy transactions that implicated the management and board of the PIC. In May 2018, we wrote to President Cyril Ramaphosa and Deputy Chief Justice Justice Zondo in his capacity as chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture to request that either a separate commission of inquiry should be instituted to investigate the PIC, or that the matter should form part of the Zondo Commission. We did this at the time as it seemed that no one was interested in getting to the bottom of this mess. As a result of our agitation, we received additional information from other anonymous sources. As we all know, the President eventually appointed the Commission of Inquiry to thoroughly investigate all the allegations pertaining to the PIC. The information that I had provided in my written submission is meant to assist the Commission to get to the bottom of the allegations of corruption around the PIC. I certainly do not possess the tools to verify the information that was provided to me. It is only within the Commission's powers, or rather power, to establish the veracity of the claims made by the anonymous sources. My testimony and the material that I'm handing over to the Commission should assist you in your task as it is referenced. I am only able to give you the little I have, which the Commission could possibly use in its dig work. It could perhaps just be the tip of the iceberg. There seemed to be a definite relationship between the former directors and employees of the PIC and other companies. A case in point is the relationships between hurried and the PIC. There also seems to be a network of selected individuals.
Sorry, if I could just ask in relation to that. I know in your submissions you deal with it later, and are you going to spell out what you see as that relationship between Hurried and the PIC after in due course?
Yes, I will. I'm ready to do so.
Okay.
There also seems to be a network of selected individuals who have easy access to the PIC's resources, which needs to be untangled and revealed. It would also be advisable for the Commission to be proactive and investigate the unlisted transactions. Transactions where it is necessary to obtain a full board permission In other words, up to less than 2 billion, a transaction can be approved without consulting a board. So it will behove the Commission to demand perhaps a printout of all these unlisted transactions for the period under review in order to satisfy itself that these transactions were above board. One of the questions that needs answering is whether these transactions are performing. What percentage is performing? Does it align with normal commercial banking norms? In the performance, if the performance is not satisfactory, then why should the PIC continue to play in the unlisted space under the current structure? Maybe PIC should only participate alongside commercial banks on strong investment terms. Transformation is not a good reason for losing pensioners' monies. It goes against any moral standard to continue writing off billions in the name of BEE. BEE can be done on a commercial basis, and the banks have been doing it for decades. PIC-funded BEE transactions that are losing money are a sophisticated way of looting from the state coffers, as we have seen in Steinhoff and other transactions. One other area of concern is whether PIC money should be used to fund persons, companies who wishes to purchase shares in companies without adequate structuring similar to the commercial banks. Why do we have the same persons, companies, being empowered continuously, as you will see in the document I've handed over? Could it be that there is a cartel of PIC beneficiaries? We're asking questions. A deep forensic investigation of these networks and possible links to PIC personnel and directors is recommended. Everything else could be secondary to what appears to be a sophisticated capture of the PIC involving advisors, PE firms, and asset managers. This could be the crux of PIC dealings and alleged corruption. If the idea of doing BE deals on a commercial basis does not make sense, should government not rather establish a totally separate fund to effect BE transactions as opposed to risking and depleting workers' pensions funds? Not ideal, but at least that approach could force a certain level of transparency and scrutiny as to who gets allocated shares, and repeat empowerment will be difficult to effect. We suggest that all unlisted transactions should be suspended with immediate effect until the Commission has published its findings and recommendations. While we are on this issue of the banking and so on and investment, the Commission is hereby requested to investigate and make a finding on the performance of the PIC against the all-share index of the JSE, and also if such performance is not below inflation, taking into account that PIC is said to be holding an average of 15% of the JSE overall market capitalization. The other issue that needs the attention of the Commission is that of investment criteria. applied by PIC on which shares to buy on the JSE. Specifically, the focus should be on the research analysts, which PIC relies on in marketing those investment decisions. The Commission is hereby asked to investigate and find out what is the experience as well as the industry expertise of each of these research analysts, taking into account that the PIC recently has had to write off tens of billions of rands of investment in the various listed shares. We further request the Commission to open a line of investigation into the pensions of ex-employees of the former TBVC states who are at loggerheads with the GEPF and National Treasury about pensions, which they say they have not received for years. Already the ex-employees of the former vendor government are being taken to court by Treasury for demanding what they feel are owed to them. The bottom line is that these people are not resourced to fight National Treasury in court, and their battle is lost before it has begun. We therefore ask for your intervention in this matter. The GEPF and Treasury should shed some light on these disputes. In conclusion, we wish that the President will give the Commission more time, the right people with right expertise to dig as deep as needs to be exposed how entrenched the rot is, given that so much of the PIC's funds have been invested outside South Africa. Definitely, institution should be invited and many other experts to trace these funds. It would not be good only just to come and do oral evidence here without the forensic processes undertaken. Aside from my testimony today, I will, of course, avail myself in future if the Commission so desires, especially after its terms of experts, such as forensic auditors, have done their scratch work and that the FICA processes have been concluded. I thank you, sir.
General, I take it that you had sight of the terms of reference of this Commission.
Yes.
And in terms of the terms of reference, this Commission must file a final report to the President by not later than 15th of April. And in terms of Section 4 of the terms of reference, taking into account what you have asked the Commission now to look at a variety of transactions and involvement of other people, it states that the Commission may, if necessary, investigate and make findings and recommendation on any other matter regarding the PIC, regardless of when it is alleged to have occurred, on condition that such other investigations, findings, and recommendations do not cause any delay in the submission of the reports on the applicable dates referred to in paragraph 3. So I take it that you realize that if this Commission must stick to its terms of reference, it will just be impossible to assist what you are asking the Commission to do. What is your view on that?
It would be a pity and, of course, a waste of taxpayers' monies if that the information you are getting from the sources and witnesses, which requires further investigation, that the government is not willing to give you time, more time. I would suggest that perhaps you need to submit an interim report to the President and advise him that notwithstanding the fact that he appointed you sometime last year, but effectively you started the work early this year. And this could be attributed to the delays by the Department of Justice. One, in finding the people to assist you and the budget. So that time frame which he proposed, that is President Ramaphosa, is not adequate. He needs to readjust the terms of reference when it comes to time frames. And of course, so far you have received information to the effect that all was not well at PIC. That institution is at the ICU as we speak. You cannot be rushed, therefore, to meet a deadline of April. Yet you are not even given tools to effect your work. Don't compromise yourselves, please.
If we can then move to your main submission, General.
Sorry, Yanni, just before we do that, if I could perhaps just raise one point in your statement, General, that is on page 4, the last bullet point, where you refer to unlisted transactions that are below the 2 billion threshold. The 2 billion threshold, to the best of my understanding, is a new ceiling that was imposed a very short while ago. The actual delegations of authority from the board to the decision-making by management had a limit of 10 billion. So they could take decisions of up to 10 billion without reference to the board.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, in terms of those delegations, which is part of our terms of reference to look at, which is what we are doing, and looking at all of those issues as well as part of the governance and the legal frame and delegation of authority and the effectiveness of the board, it's part of our terms of reference. So it's just to indicate that this 2 billion was not there previously. It is something that has happened in the very recent past by the board, and that previously the delegation allowed a much higher limit, and the matters that would be referred to decision of the board per se, as distinct from the committees, is very limited in those delegations. So it was in many ways delegated to the working committees, which had board members on them that could take decisions, but the board itself had very limited referral or in terms of the delegations that they approved to management to execute. So it's just a clarity on that question.
Thanks for the clarity. I've taken note of it. Thank you very much.
If we can then go to your main submission, page 4.
Main submission.
No, I'm sorry. It's this one. Yeah, that's it. If we go to page 2, paragraph 5, where you make mention of the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund 1 and 2. If you can just give more clarity on that to the Commission.
Yes, one other transaction that needs careful scrutiny is the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, where these monies are invested. That is the pensions monies of the workers. We are told that this was delegated to a company called hurried. And hurried, according to the documents I've given you, and also possible the leadership of the PIC, could be in a position to give more details as to where in the continent are these monies invested under this Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund. Can we go and do an inspection in loco of those areas where the monies are invested? Are they invested in railway lines, properties? what is it exactly and what are the returns? Because according to our information, in terms of the current value, the estimate is around 8.2 billion. And our sources are telling us that it is underperforming. So we need clarity. Perhaps the people who are experts on that can make calculations. So that's, I hope I've clarified it.
The next one is in paragraph 6, the project Atlas and the Kilimanjaro Sakamoto Consortium Limited matter.
Here on this transaction, Kilimanjaro Sakumnoto Consortium bought a stake from a Total South Africa for a value of 1.7 billion. But the interesting part on this, after this was approved by the board, the payment ended up being 1.8 million, which means there was 100 million, 100 million topping up. So we are asking some questions. What was this 100 million paid for? Was there any addendum after the board approved 1.7? Who were paid for this amount, for this 100 million? And in particular, the people who can give more information is Dan Machela himself, the former CEO, and a certain Lawrence Mulaudzi, who, according to our sources and our screenshots which we have been privy to, indicate a conversation between Mulaudzi and the CEO about the very same question where a media person was querying the transaction of 1.7, then which ended up being 1.8. We are asking you, the Commission, to verify whether there was any addendum which was sent to the board in order to rectify this.
Sorry, can I ask you, while we're looking at that, to refer to that particular screenshot and have it read into the record?
Come again?
Can you please read into the record what is stated on page 3, the screenshot captured in...
I quote, Dr. Machila said, "Brewer, did you give the journalist the share certificate of Tosako?" That was a question from Dan Machila. And then Mr. Mulaudzi's response is as follows, I quote, "Afternoon, doctor. We didn't give them shares certificates. We gave them share register only, and that was last year. I think her concern is that why we only paid 1.7 billion, whereas we got funding approval for 1.8 billion. What happened to 100 million? I said 50 million went to transactional advisors and 50 million went to recapitalize the company, and we have already paid it back to PIC through first dividends received. I also briefed Sekhuelo, regards Lawrence," close quote.
Can we ensure that tracking of the refunding and what actually happened with that from the PIC minutes, records, and is obtained and presented to us?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. We are already in the process of obtaining that, and evidence will be let in on the score. Thank you. Can you then deal with the transaction referred to in paragraph 7 of your submission?
Further, we wish to refer you to the alleged funding support for Kefolile Health Investment Properties for the subscription of Sendes Health Limited and Bounty Brands. These deals that involves the PIC and some other common role players had been for an aggregate amount of 1.7 billion funding support. The alleged common role player in both the TOSACO as well as Project Atlas is Mr. Mulaudzi. We think you would be wise to inquire what his role had been in both deals, whether he received transactional incentives, and most importantly, if all the allegations are true, why it seems so easy for Mr. Mulaudzi to gain access to PIC funding.
Advocate, can I just for clarity ask whether this Lawrence Mulaudzi is the same person who was involved in the pretty low MST deal? Sorry, Pretty Yende, that is not meant for you. It's a very different question. And the provision of funding in that where he had asked where Dr. Machila asked that Lawrence Mulaudzi to pay the 300,000 odd to Ms. Lowe in the MST question. Is that the same person that is being referred to? Same spelling, same name?
We can confirm that it's the same person. And we trust that Ms. Pretty Lowe will also come and sing at the commission. Yes, it is the same. And can you just do on page 4?
And also what the commission should also consider doing would be to summon a certain individual at PIC called Mr. Roy Raja. He seemed to have been a person who is recommending for the transactions to be looked at by PIC, so he can go through all these documents which are here, and I'm sure he would help you. The Commission would also be well advised to scrutinize these records, and as I've said, in particular, around the role of Mr. Mulaudzi. Following the money trail, will the files contain a consumer trace report, or I call it trace, yeah, it's a trace report, which reveals the over 30 companies in which Mr. Mulaudzi is actively playing a role, as well as, according to the consumer trace report, he has 4 landlines and 6 cell phone numbers. I wish you good luck in dealing with this one. He seems to be one individual who press levers. He communicates with directors, he communicates with the CEO, the then CEO, and even some board members.
The next paragraph, scrutinizing the information.
Well, scrutinizing the information, we came across a text message, which is an apparent conversation between Mr. Mulaudzi and a certain board member, where he appears to be pressurizing for a payment to be done, and he even forwarded what could be his bank account details. So it's contained in the Annexure 3, which I submitted. This seems to reinforce or enforce the idea that Mr. Mulaudzi had a hotline with the PIC management.
Can again, for record purposes, can you read that into the record? The text from the Annexure 3.
Okay. The text reads as follows, I quote, "Dear Busi, I would like to ask for your intervention on the payment meant to be done by Pretoria office a fortnight back. They kept promising every day that payment would be done with no success. Please, I need your assistance. We are in breach of our bridge loan, and we are frustrated not knowing where to get 5 million at the moment. Close quote.
And that is from Mr. Mulaudzi
Yes.
to Ms. Zulu.
But where do we see that it's from Mr. Mulaudzi? The next one, or the screen next to that one that you have just read?
The one to Dolly TGAPA.
No, the one
No.
that you've just read.
Yes.
The name at the top is Busisiwe Busizulu. Is that the recipient?
She's
or
a,
the sender?
she's a recipient of the message from Mulaudzi.
And where do we see that it comes from, Mr. Mulaudzi?
If you look at this at these screenshots, later on you will be seeing that he even sent his personal bank account details. So in order for you to see that part, because it's not clear there, perhaps you can summon that telephone number where he sent this screenshot. I'm sure you've got powers to do so.
But according to your sources, that comes from
Yes.
Mr. Mulaudzi.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Right, you had a diagram attached. Can we move to 6? You said you'll deal with the hurried matter in 8.1 of your submission.
Where is that?
Page 4, para 8.
Para 8. Well, regarding the role of hurried, we have been made to understand that the following information and questions are pertinent. Hurried is made up of Hurried Fund Management and Hurried General Partners. Hurried was started with seed capital from the PIC amounting to 25 million rand. This has reportedly been repaid. The PIC owns...
Sorry, when was that seed money granted? Because in your documents I can't see when it was granted to Hurried.
I would have to furnish you with more information on which year was this.
I think that's really important because
Yes.
given that the person referred to is former Deputy Minister Jabu Moleketi, and he was chair of the PIC.
Yes.
So we just need to know whether this was granted during his term of office, post his term of office, pre his term of office of chairing the PIC. So the date matters.
Thank you very much. We will provide the information.
We can also assist the general
The PIC owns a stake in both companies. There is little distinction between the companies, and they appear to operate from the same premises and shares a website. Employees and key ExCo members also place little distinction between the entities on their LinkedIn profiles, with Hurried Fund Managers and Hurried General Partners used interchangeably. There is a link between Hurried and Bashe also, as indicated in my diagram. How did PIC provide the seed funding for Hurried? Who approved the seed funding? When was this repaid and on what terms? Did the CEO and chairperson declare any interest in various companies and their relationship with Hurried? The chairperson was was Jabu Moleketi, former Deputy Minister of Finance, who was the chairperson of PIC, and Mashwale was an employee of PIC. So, did the CEO and chairperson declare any interest? I've already covered that. What shareholding did the initial seed funding the PIC to? How was the PIC stake decreased to 30%? The initial shareholding and setup of the companies are not clear. It is interesting that the PAIDF, that is Pan-African Investment Development Fund, Infrastructure Development Fund, was set up by Mashwale while she was at the PIC. And then Hurried manages, Hurried manages the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund on behalf of the PIC, where Mr. Mashwale is now the CEO. So here I'm trying to draw a conflict of...
The correct name is Mashwele.
Mashwele. All right, sir. Thank you very much. So the role of Mashwele and Jabu Moleketi as former PIC operatives, it would appear they have gone out to create an empire, as you will see in my submission, where they are involved. And I hope that they will be given an opportunity to clarify these issues. But more importantly is to see that there seems to be a conflict of interest here. Because later on, they get monies from PIC as and when they want to extend their businesses. So can I go to Lebashe?
No, can I just get clarity?
Yes, sir.
The third last bullet in 8.1, did the CEO and chairman declare any interest, etc.? The CEO there, is that the CEO of PIC or some other?
That is CEO Mashwale.
It was Mashwale.
Yes, yes. And the chairperson is Jabu Moleketi.
But was Mashwele CEO of Harris, as the last bullet mentions, or was he still at the PIC?
Mashwele has never been a CEO of the PIC. He has been a CEO of hurried.
Just remind me, did he have any involvement as an employee at the PIC at some stage?
At some stage, yes, he had.
And one would so the PAIDF was set up a long time ago, so it might mean the PIC CEOs were, you know, as people know, it would have been Brian Molefe, Mr. Masilela, and Dr. Den, isn't it?
Yes, I think it was established during Brian Molefe's era. But records, I'm sure, will prove that. Let me talk now to the role of Lebashe. Regarding Lebashe, we have been made to understand that the following information and questions are pertinent. Lebashe is made up of several companies. The key players in Lebashe are Mashwale and Mr. Warren Whitley. Lebashe reportedly obtained a loan from the PIC for rapid expansion, with said loan having reportedly already repaid. This may raise questions regarding the basis for the PIC loan to Lebashe when key former PIC individuals are controlling and owning Lebashe. The value of the loan is unknown. How was this loan obtained and on what terms? Lebashe has gone on to acquire large shares in Capitec Bank, EOH, and TSS Capital.
Just a question there, a question. I just want to find out, do we know the loan amount, Advocate Lube?
Not at this stage, Mr. Commissioner, but it will be easy to find out.
Yeah, okay.
Lebashe has also acquired an undisclosed stake in the 4 Africa Exchange, where Mr. Mohlale is a director. Lebashe operates from the same address as hurried, that is 34 Impala Road. All of these transactions with related parties may be questionable. It is unclear if these decisions were taken in compliance with the provisions of the Companies Act and have been reported accurately in terms of the IAS 24. Did Mrs. Mohlale Moleketi make the appropriate declarations in terms of the Companies Act? Regarding Lebashe, okay.
Just to check something, so are you saying that we're talking about 3 companies, sort of hurried is a fund manager, and then there's a PAIDF, which is a fund, and Lebashe seems to be a separate company that is not linked, but are you saying also that one as a private company belonging to these people, that it was funded by the PIC too?
Well, the role of the directors of Lebashe, if you look at them, they are part of the hurried, they are also part of Lebashe, and they are sharing the same building. So all I'm asking here, I'm trying to develop a story that there is a conflict of interest somehow. And what we need to do, who is funding Lebashe? Is it funded through hurried? Have there been any transfer of monies from PIC to hurried and then to Lebashe? Those details, the leadership of PIC can give you more details. Like, for instance, hurried was seeded 100% when it was established by PIC. Later on, we were told that PIC only has 30% of the shareholding in the same institution. How was the 70% dispersed to Jabu Mlegeti and Mohlale and whoever else is there? We just need that information. It could be easily obtained, I'm sure.
And so you are saying that there's a possibility that some of the money in hurried could have been used to found Lebashe, or that maybe there could have been direct money from the PIC to help Lebashe. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 8.3.
8.3, according to the PIC's 2017 annual report, the PIC and the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund collectively own 50% of Lanseria. That is Lanseria Airport. Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund is currently being managed by hurried. Lanseria Holdings owns the remaining 50%. Mr. Mohlale is a director of Lanseria Holdings. Lebashe has a charters and aviation finance arm in which Mohlale is also a director. It would be beneficial for such a company to have access to ownership in an airport when it is involved in charters and aviation finance, albeit indirectly through its director, Mr. Mohlale. Regarding conflict of interest, we have been made to understand that the following questions are pertinent. How did the CEO and chairperson fulfill their duties in the PIC whilst taking decisions for the companies in which they had an interest. Where the proper declarations...
Just on that question, that comes back to the timing issue.
Of Jabu Moleketi.
Yes,
that's
because
him.
this assumes that they were in office at the time.
They were both in the office of the PIC.
At the time that this was done?
Yes, it was their decision. I think the decision was taken by this former CEO, what's his name? Brian Molefe, for the establishment of this Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, and that Motsoale would go and operate this outside the PIC. So therefore, Jabu Moleketi later on followed and went and chaired the same hurried outside the PIC when his term ended.
Yeah. So all I'm clearing at this, I understand that all I'm clearing at this point in time with your first bullet is that according to what you're saying is they were in the PIC at the time that this took place, being the chair and an employee in terms of the conflict of interest issue.
Yes, it could be established.
Yeah.
And yeah. Where the proper declarations made with regard to these transactions, hurried fund managers, hurried general practitioners, and Lebashe all operate from 34 Impala Road, as I've said. Is there absolute separation between the companies? Are there any shared employees and executives? If so, this would create a conflict of interest if not appropriately handled. This style of doing business with friends and colleagues reminds us of what we heard from the Zondo Commission, where, to twist the adage, a leopard changes its spots, but it still remains a leopard. Merely changing a company name from Bosasa to African Global Operations does not mean that the looting spree stops. So far, that's fine. That's what I would say about Lebashe, Hurried, as well as PIDF.
I want you now to deal with 8.5 and alleged loan to a certain Mr. Mori.
Well, regarding the Government Employment Pension Fund issues, we have been made to understand that the following information and questions are pertinent. One, there is a certain Bongani More. According to a deeds research, Mr. More has a 7.4 million bond issued by GEPF. Since when, that is the question, since when does the GEPF provide home loans to individuals? Why is pension money being utilized for home loans? There is nothing that allows the GEPF to provide a home loan to any individual. Perhaps the executive or the leaders of the directors of GEPF should also explain this concern.
Can I ask you, do you perhaps know whether this Mr. More is related to the present acting CEO of the PIC, Matsepo More?
I am not sure about that, although I know Matsepo More because she's married to my cousin brother. But I can't confirm whether this More is her brother.
And you don't know her husband's name, first name?
Matsepo? Yeah. It's Figile Holomisa.
Okay. Oh, I see. So the More could be another More. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You can now deal with paragraph 10 of your submission on page 9.
Well, on this one, it might be of interest to the Commission to have a look at PIC deals that were struck after the Commission was instituted. For example, where information from an anonymous whistleblower is doing rounds, which alleges that a 4 billion current beef deal was not above board. The other is an investment into an Egyptian bank. I mean, these things are in the public domain. I read about this in the Business Day that a bank in Egypt were investing some monies there. We also read that a transaction was approved on current beef. But later on, you get these messages flying all over the place to say, in actual fact, this current beef is not above board. I'm merely saying, please satisfy yourself on these things, because these monies are too much to be wasted around.
Mr. Commissioner, just for the record, we are looking at the current beef transaction. It was a transaction that was started before the Commission was appointed, but it's not been finalized according to the latest information that we got. We don't know about the Egyptian bank, and we'll follow that up. You have dealt already with the unlisted
Yes, sir.
problems. I think you must go to paragraph 12 now of your main submission. It's on page 10.
Chair, we humbly submit that the model of having a political head for the PIC is clearly fraught with danger and has proven to be controversial. Given the reported meetings between, for instance, in my submission, between Zongi Zizwe, an ANC fund company or investment company, and the PIC leadership, one can no longer have confidence in this institution. The ruling party has, for instance, investment companies such as Tebe Investments, which is an asset manager. And this would raise eyebrows, of course, if they were also getting PIC business. So in my submission, I spoke in detail about the Zongi Zizwe company, an ANC company, and also I attached the relevant information into this document, these documents. So when you hear me mentioning Zongi Zizwe, I've already spoken about it at length in other pages.
Sorry, I think again, in keeping with what we did earlier, it would be useful for you to quote from the letter that you have on page 9, 2.8 and 2.9, and if necessary, look at the screenshots that you have as appendices for that.
That is from 2.8.
Yeah, perhaps you can start at paragraph 9 on page 8.
Okay. Paragraph 9. Let me make sure we're together.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, thank you. Chairperson, I now draw the Commission's attention to the attached letter from Adekeye attorneys dated 12 October 2017, addressed to Afric Oil. The annexure is contained in some of the documents. Apparently, there is a dispute around an outstanding amount of 1.4 million of what appears to be a management and consultancy fee for Zongi Zizwe Investment Limited, Zongizizwe is wholly owned by ANC for introducing Africa Oil Limited to the PIC. We quote the following from the letter. I quote, "It was agreed at the third meeting that due to sensitive nature of the matter, no written capital raising agreement should be concluded between Africa Oil and Zongizizwe, and that the parties should rely on the verbal understandings, verbal undertakings and agreement that had been agreed upon amongst the parties at the first meeting with regards to fundraising fees, including the split thereof amongst the Treasurer General, Zongizizwe, and Noble. Thereafter, the TG Zongizizwe and Noble executed the mandate and lobbied the PIC through various channels, which effort culminated in the PIC approving the PIC loan and the signature of a term sheet between the PIC and Africa Oil sometimes in October 2016. On this one, there are people who are ready to testify, and I'll forward the names, people who are claiming their money, and then you can summon them. The entire content of the letter is self-explanatory, and should the Commission deem it fit, it could make inquiry into it. It might be of interest to the Commission to have a look at PIC deals that were struck. I've already covered that part. Yes.
And that total loan was 7 million. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. I think so, according to, I think so, but the money, the fee they are claiming is 1.4 million. And we have also attached an invoice which was sent to Africa Oil for your ease of reference. Aye, Jalemali.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. That concludes the presentation of Mr. General Holomisa.
I want to ask a broader question, and General, sort of, if you can indulge us as a brief. You've been traveling through a long journey with this PIC matter, I think from 2016 or so. And without, sort of revealing whistleblowers, whatever, we do not want that in general. But can you just take us on a journey just to add some color on how you have traveled this journey in terms of, meetings and the people, not the identities of the people, just broadly give us something about this PIC journey which you have traveled.
Well, from the time we took a decision to write a letter to the public protector, a lot of interest developed among South Africans. If one looks at the newspaper reports, Amabunganes did their own investigations, City Press, Business Day, and those papers and those people, we should commend them. They have done a sterling job. It was for this reason that the United Democratic Movement felt a need to approach the president to say, man, we have been reading about these nauseating exposés. When are you taking action? And after I wrote those letters, and some of them I made them public to the president, then a lot of information started to flow in. It was a very difficult period because when you get an anonymous information with no telephone contacts, what you rely on is your research team. Then your researchers, you tell them, what is this company called Hurried? What is this? What is that? Can you get annual reports? Can you draw a linkage? My staff started to do that work. And I'm happy that today we are able to assist the Commission to do their work, and I hope that you will be given more tools or rather you have tools to verify the authenticity or otherwise of these allegations, which have been brought by the South Africans, people who are concerned. When I meet soldiers and meet civil servants or teachers, and old people in Venda, in Transkei and so on, they say, but why on earth would you guys allow the government to use pension funds to fund so-called BE transactions? Look now, these BE some of them I could not be able to pay back these monies. Why are you allowing the people to use the pension funds willy-nilly? What would happen if this fund is depleted completely? So, unfortunately, I am not in a position to come and say so-and-so said to me. I'm just summarizing to you the people I've met in South Africa, but they have helped me a lot in producing this kind of document.
And so you sort of had a team within the UDM to look at it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, General, can I just ask for clarity purposes, 2.9, where you've just read or quoted at page 9, you said thereafter the TG, zonke izizwe noble executed their mandate. In the letter from which I suppose the quote is that the letter of the 12th October 2017 to Africa Oil?
Yes, it should be there.
Yes.
Yes.
At paragraph.
It should be there, but another thing which I can add on that, I was fortunate on this one because after I was on air about these transactions, the decision to ask President to investigate these matters. Some of these Zongizis were directors. One or two of them came to me. And then when I submitted this letter to motivating to the President, over and above the documents they gave me, they also dictated to me verbal what happened.
Yes. But what I just want clarity on is at paragraph 2.2 of the letter, the third line, the Treasurer General of the ANC, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, TG, is that the TG that is referred to in
Treasurer General.
Treasurer General in paragraph
2.9.
Yes. I see. Yeah.
And just to follow up, if you can, broadly your sources, I mean, if they come from, from where? Generally from
They are South Africans. Thank you.
And just again for clarity on that, if you look at the letter, 2.2 again, the approval of, this is a 200 million loan. Is that correct?
That should be 200 million.
200 million loan for Africa Oil.
Yes. So some of those guys from Zongizizwe, they are willing to come and start singing here.
You mean we should summon them all, or will you give us names?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, it's a 200 million loan, which is 2.2, and then in 252, the total payment for the fundraising fee was 7 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that
would be paid to the three parties, TG, Zonkazizwe, and Noble, which is 3.5% of the loan. And then this claim is for that amount that is outstanding. Yeah?
Yes, the claim is for the services rendered. They are claiming their consultancy fee. You are correct on 707 million. That's the dispute. That's what they are disputing. They claim that we managed to arrange you such a big fund and introduce you to the Treasurer General, and you got the money. Now you are not paying our service, paying for our services.
But the essence of it was facilitation. I just want to get that.
Yes.
The facilitation of a loan of 200 million, a fee of 7 million, of which the dispute is roughly 1.5 million.
Yes,
that's
it's
not paid.
1.4 million.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to check, on the addendum that you have given us,
yes,
that you have some screenshots that are linked to some names and all that, and I just wanted to check with the advocate, is that, can this be read into the record or not?
Mr. Commissioner, at this stage, I would prefer, and I recommended that to General Holomisa because of the sensitivity and the privacy involved in this documentation, that it not be made public at this stage.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do you want an order to that effect, or?
Yes, I think it will be advisable, Mr. Commissioner, that at this stage it may not be made public.
It is so ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
General, I want to thank you very much, but before I go further, the application that the UDM launched, that was referred to earlier on, was the allegations there were mainly based on information received from somebody called James Nogu. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Or much of it, or part of it?
Part of it, because part of it also the media coverage.
And what you have placed before us today, James Nogu had nothing to do with that information?
No, not on this one. I don't even know how that guy looks like. No, not at all. But these are facts, and then I managed to get documentation for you to assist you to trace some of these transactions.
All right, thank you very much. And thanks for the information that you have placed before us, and thanks for your time that you have taken of your time to come and testify before us.
Thank you, sir.
In terms of, in respect of the your submission that I think you said we should do an interim report.
Yes, sir.
We have already done an interim report.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to inform you as to what the contents of the report is, because I don't even know whether the President has read it. It seems to be very busy.
Yes, it's that time, remember. We're campaigning now.
Yes, so some of the matters that you referred to are already in the report, some of them.
Thank you.
Yes, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. This is then the business for the day. And we postpone or adjourn then till Monday at 10.
Yes, thank you. We'll then adjourn until Monday, the 25th at 10.